When people talk about Dr. Stone, pretty much universally, the first thing they'll bring up is the science, which would make sense. This is a shonen about science. All the experiments, trial and error, failure, how you get from step A to B, all of this is this show's strongest selling point, and it is fantastic, and it is compelling, and it is entertaining. But if you go a little bit further, you start hearing other discussions. A lot of people love the characters in the show, and I mean, how can you not fucking love Senku and Taiji and Kohaku, and just the whole gang is just super fucking fun. They might also bring up the comedy, which is top notch in this show, or the art style, which the manga art style is freaking insanity. And of course, they might also just bring up, like, the character designs and how insanely hot Kohaku is, and I better get back on topic before I start talking about Kohaku too much. Anyways, the one thing people don't really talk about with this show, and I'm here to talk about this today, is the actual conflict of the first set of chapters and episodes. The Stone War conflict, as it sort of gets summed up as. And the reason I'd like to talk about this today is I actually think the conflict between Senku and Tsukasa is a very well done, very genius sort of conflict. And it doesn't get enough attention. Hell, I don't think season 2 got enough attention, period. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why I love this plot, what it's about, and why I think a lot of shonens should learn from it. So, let's just get right into it with our setup. On one end of things, you have Senku. Senku is a very unique combination of traits. You see, most of the times in media, scientists are these cold-hearted, factual number people, and if they're the main character, because let's be real here, most of the time they're not, the main character is the normie, but if they are the main character, their story arc is almost always about them learning to stop always having their nose in a book and care about people and all this stuff. That is not Senku. Senku is, to an extent, traits like that, but he's a little more than that. Yes, obviously he cares about science above all else, he loves learning things, and he loves applying the scientific method, but from the beginning they established that Senku is an idealist. He is someone who wants to believe that tomorrow will be better, and he wants to do it with the people around him. I really like as the show goes on and you see his bond with Teiji. It starts off as just being very simple school friends, but as they go more into it, you learn just how important this guy is in his life. And that goes for every other character he meets along the way. Senku is 100% the kind of person who wants to have friends and people around, and he wants to believe in those people. That's what makes him so much fun to watch, is even when he can be a bit of a likable jerk, the thing is, you can't not like the guy. And to see him want to show that science is what will bring us into the future and what will allow for all of humanity to come back and rise again is a very great way to make this character work, and it's part of the reason I love him. On the other side of things, you've got Tsukasa. And Tsukasa looks like he should be the standard shonen protagonist. He is 100% the brawn over brain, strength, everything. But more importantly, you need to listen to what he actually says and thinks about. He is actually the one who doesn't believe in humanity. He is the one who looks at everything very narrowly, and he is the one who believes that, no, there is no hope for everyone, so therefore, we should only try and save a select few. We should only select the few that I deem worthy. It's kind of the big thing here. I often hear a lot of people talk about how they side with Tsukasa, and they often talk about how the conflict is actually not represented that well because Tsukasa is in an antagonistic role. I think those people might be missing the point. The point to this whole thing is that Senku does not believe in controlling people. He simply believes in using science to make the world better. Whereas Tsukasa only wants the people he deems worthy. He wants total control over everyone. Look at the people he brings back. Senku brings back prioritizes the people he likes, his friends, good people. Tsukasa prioritizes bringing people back who will serve in his army, who will function beneath him, who won't necessarily rise against him. That's sort of what separates these two a lot. It is showing that Senku cares about people and wants to help people versus Tsukasa, who doesn't necessarily want to do that. So yeah, it's a fairly straightforward protagonist-antagonist relationship, right? Not really. One of the biggest things that makes these two characters work, in my opinion, is the way they are portrayed. Yosuke Kobayashi, I probably butchered that, is a fantastic Senku. Just like he is with Subaru and ReZero, he makes the characters seem likable and relatable even when it would be so easy for them to screw up. Watch the dubs and you'll see that. Tsukasa, on the other hand, has a very interesting take on his voice. Yuichi Nakamura could easily just make Tsukasa seem like the big scary brute, but the way he voices Tsukasa, he makes Tsukasa seem soft-spoken, kind-hearted, not necessarily just dumb and muscular all the time. That's really what they're trying to come across here. Even if Tsukasa's logic and what he wants to do is flawed, because of the way they use the acting and even the animation a lot of the times, he's never presented as a villain. He can be redeemed. He can be fixed. Yeah, he broke all the statues, but they're fixing them, so it's fine now. Yeah. So that is really where all that comes into a thing, and then it comes into the question of when it all comes to a head. Who will prevail? Will it be idealism or realism? Well, obviously idealism. Senku's the main character, but what's important is how they showed how everything came into play. It wasn't just all of the scientific theory, but it was the people that Senku met along the way. Chrome, Kohaku, and everyone else in the village, they worked with Senku because Senku prioritized using science to benefit their lives, as opposed to Tsukasa, who basically just wanted everyone to be his servant, and you better follow him because he will fucking kill you if you don't. And so therefore, people immediately start betraying Tsukasa. Rather it's Gen or the chick who liked the singer, all of these people, they leave Tsukasa for Senku because Senku shows that there's a better tomorrow, there's a better future. The world can excel, the world can progress. And I think in today's world, that's something very important. Even the way Senku ends up winning the Stone War, it required no violence, it required no bloodshed. It was based around that simple idea of using science and showing how it will lead to a better tomorrow. He proved that you can build things like tanks, you can have recordings of stuff, you can have phones, you can even have explosives, which they then use advantageously to save Tsukasa's sister. That is what won out the day. It was friendship and it was the desire to progress. Oh my god, when you put it that way, this is the most generic sounding shonen in the world, and maybe that's why it works. Using the shonen formula and the shonen archetype here really allows for it to kind of stay like straight arrow and keep its positive message about a better tomorrow and how it's possible for us to work towards it. And we see that ultimately come to a head in how Senku saves Tsukasa's sister. If Tsukasa had just done things his way and everything just worked out the way he wanted, he couldn't have saved her. I mean, technically he could have found her one day and used the revival fluid, but the point is, Senku is the one who came up with the theory that the revival fluid would save her. That is what allowed for everything to work out in the end. Tsukasa was shown that Senku has a point and he can do it. But Tsukasa is also not necessarily giving up on his ideals, and at the end he does point out a very fair point. How are they going to feed more and more people? How are they going to sustain everything? How is the world going to come back? If the world does come back, we'll just go right back to self-destruction? These are all very important, fair questions, and Senku doesn't necessarily have an answer. But then when they have their final fight against who ends up being the actual villain of the whole thing, Senku says something very important. He says that all 7 billion people will help all 7 billion people. The point of that phrase is that ultimately, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how tough it will be, I will continue to believe in the power of science and the power in humanity. It's what got us this far, and it's what's going to get us further into the future. Personally, for me, of the new batch of shonens that's coming out, next to My Hero Academia, Dr. Stone, I think, is probably my favorite. At the very least, I like it more than Jujutsu Kaisen. But yeah, and I think these are the things I really love about it. As I get older, I find like I don't necessarily gravitate towards the sort of mean, angry cynicism I did for a long time. As an adult, I'm much more interested in stories about how people decide, yeah, the world is bad. What am I going to do about it? And I think Dr. Stone is the ultimate embodiment of that. And for that, I truly love this show, and I can't wait for season 3 and hope it continues to entertain and inspire in the future. As for you, tell me about what you think of Dr. Stone in the comments section below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me in the future for hopefully more positive anime talk.